Hi friends, welcome to the end of week 1 and all of week 2 of the No Spend Pantry Challenge. My name is Amy and I live on 42 acres with my family of 5 in central Victoria, Australia. And I'm joining the Three Rivers Challenge to try and cut down the amount of food preserved from the last year's harvests and food purchased from the shops that are in my deep freezer and in my pantry. This is footage from Saturday where I wanted to prepare some smoothies for the upcoming week. My aim this week was to start using the fresh produce, and I had a whole bowl full of bananas that needed to be used up. So smoothies were the perfect start to using these. I also froze some bananas to make some sorbet over the heat wave we were about to embark on. Dinner on Saturday night was rice with lentil sauce that I had made that week. Hi friends, it is Sunday and I have started the day off with a smoothie and a bowl of fruit, and this is what I'm having most mornings at the moment. It's really nourishing for me at the moment to have just a bowl of summer fruit and to have a smoothie full of seeds and nuts, prebiotics and lots of fruit. And sometimes I'll put a nut milk in, but at the moment I don't have any milk on hand. So I've been putting some coconut in, and this has been basically making a coconut milk with the water that I add into the smoothie. And so I'm picking a few things this morning to prepare for an afternoon of baking and cooking and making. I've got a few things I need to make today, or I need to use up. So I've got some bananas that need to be used up. So I'm going to do some baking. I'm going to make some more smoothies to go in the fridge so that they're accessible for using on the go, using quickly, because I'm starting work tomorrow. And also it is a busy season. Summer and autumn is busy as well. So even though I'm going to be using up things in my pantry and freezer, I also want to prepare things to make it easier to process all the things that are going to be processed in the future. So my main objective of this challenge is to make room for preserving and freezing the produce that I will be harvesting in summer and autumn. So that is my main objective, and I've got quite a lot in the deep freeze. So today I'll be doing a little bit of baking, and yes, this will probably fill my freezer again, but it's using up what I have fresh in my house. And let's face it, my kids will eat through it so fast that I will need to bake some more things eventually. One thing I have been making are breakfast muffins. So we've been making them with the bananas that we got, the bulk bananas that were on sale. So organic bananas at the moment I think are around $6 at our local fruit and veg shop. But I got these bananas for $2 a kilo because they were they're becoming past it. They're cake bananas, so they need to be used up. So I thought that was a bargain. And so I'm going to make a lot of breakfast muffins because these are easy for the kids to have for breakfast when I'm not able to cook a breakfast, but they're also fantastic for snacks as well. And they are super healthy. I do have a little bit of gardening to do this morning. I've got some seedlings that I want to get into the ground, but when it gets hotter later, I will be in the kitchen getting some things made. So I've also got some lentils that I've cooked previously, and I want to use these lentils to make lentil burgers. This will be our dinner tonight, but I'm going to make a bulk amount of them so I can freeze them for other meals. We've had our dried lentils for a long time, so we buy things in bulk, and I feel the urgency to use up a lot of these lentils that have been in our pantry for a while. and then we can get a fresh bag of them. So this is mint here. I'm thinking I'll do a salad with the lentil burgers that we have tonight. And the dandelion leaves that I've just harvested, I will be using in smoothies. The smoothies will have the bananas that I need to use up, but they'll also have some greens from my garden as well. So let's go and see what else I can harvest to use in the cooking later this afternoon. So I'm thinking I will harvest some of these beautiful chives I have here. I have been freezing some of the chives, so I'm going to take a whole heap and I might make some savory muffins with these in them, or I might, freeze some more. They're good with eggs. I'll have a bit of a search and have a look at some recipes and see what I can make with these. We have got a lot of eggs coming in at the moment. We're getting at least 5 a day. So maybe I'll do some eggs for lunch. So they might go with the eggs. Okay, so for my lentil burgers, I usually add a massive amount of herbs into the lentil burger mix. And I don't have a huge amount of oregano, but I usually add a large amount of oregano, maybe some parsley. All the parsley I have is going to seed, and the ones that are growing or just starting are tiny. They've only got a few shoots of leaves happening. So I've got all this beautiful basil. I'm going to add basil into this mix of lentil burgers. I don't believe I've added basil before, but it is going to have that beautiful, fresh summer flavor with basil added in. Okay, I got a huge amount of basil. I'm really excited about how well basil is growing at the moment. And while I was harvesting the basil, I came across a spinach plant that's gone to seed. I'm glad I've picked the spinach now. So I've got everything I think I pretty much need to make the items I'm going to make this afternoon. I will go and put these in some water. So especially these dandelion leaves, they're already starting to droop a lot. So I'm going to go and put these in water in my kitchen so that they stay fresh until I'm ready to use them this afternoon. I ended up doing some scrambled eggs for lunch. Most of my family had them on toast, but I had mine with some leftover risotto and feta on top. Every summer I buy large watermelons. We usually start with one whole watermelon the week of Christmas, and then I'll buy a few here and there when it's requested. This one was our Christmas watermelon, and this year it wasn't cut into on Christmas Day. I'm only just getting to cut it now, and this may be due to our cooler days we had around Christmas. Now it's time for my afternoon of baking and cooking. So my aim, as I said before, is to cook up the rest of these bananas and to make some lentil burgers and make dinner tonight, which I was thinking was going to be the lentil burgers with a salad. And I'm still thinking I will make the salad, but it'll be for tomorrow night because I'm working tomorrow. I want to have something ready to eat. And so lentil burgers and a salad would be really easy for the kids to sort out while I'm still at work. So what I'm making right now to use up 2 of the bananas I have here is making a waffle batter, and then in the morning we'll be able to use that waffle batter to make waffles. So I'll just keep it in the fridge until the morning. And I'm also going to make some breakfast muffins because we don't have any milk. Everyone's relying on the bread. And while I do have some of my homemade bread in the freezer, we've only got this much left of the gluten-free bread. So I'm hoping that this will do everyone while I'm at work for lunch with some added things. Perhaps they'll have some leftovers too, hopefully. I will be taking leftovers with me to work, but at least for breakfast, because my family does like to have toast, at least they will have the waffle batter so we can make up some waffles, and I can heat up some frozen fruit to go on top. and some yogurt because we've got heaps of yogurt. We just don't have any milk. And then I will purchase some milk and a few things tomorrow after work. So this is a gluten-free waffle batter. It involves using oats, and the oats get ground up into a flour, and then there's bananas in it. There is the option to put pecans, but my kids don't like pecans. There's also the option to put sugar in, but I tend to not put sugar in pancake or waffle mix because you're adding sugar on top, like you're adding maple syrup or honey or whatever on top of the waffles. So it has 2 eggs in it, and then I'll put some cinnamon in and some baking powder and baking soda with some salt as well, and then some vanilla extract. So it's a pretty easy recipe to make up. Like with all of my kitchen videos, I try to put what recipes I can down below in the description, so you will find the recipe there. Okay, I'm going to start making the muffins now, and I can make it in this dirty Thermomix bowl because it's going to have a similar batter to what I've just made. So this is how I cut down on how much washing I need to do in the kitchen. So this muffin recipe involves using milk again, but because I don't have milk, I'm going to use a mixture of yogurt and a little bit of water in the recipe. But first, I have to put all the other ingredients in. I've got about a quarter left of this big bag of biodynamic whole wheat flour. So I'm going to be using this flour quite a bit during this challenge to try and get rid of it because I've had it for 6 months or so. So I want to use this up, but I will also be using my gluten-free flour mix at times as well. I've just made up a batch of baking powder. So one thing I love about the Thermomix is it comes with all these recipes of how to make your certain things from scratch. So I've got my baking powder here and I need to decant it into some jars. All right, so I'm going to add maybe an ounce. So this recipe is in ounces. It must be an American recipe. 1 ounce of water, and the rest of the 4.5 ounces is going to be the yogurt. Okay, 10 ounces of bananas, which is around 2 to 3 large bananas. So let's see how many I can use up in this recipe. There we go. So I've got 2.5 bananas left. 2 ounces of walnut halves, 1/2 teaspoon of cinnamon, 1/2 teaspoon of nutmeg. I haven't got much left in this container, so the rest will go in. Okay, I've got one more recipe to do before I clean this bowl. So I'm going to make some banana blondies. I just so happen to have some white chocolate chips in the pantry. I've also got our Brazil nuts. We've got plenty of Brazil nuts because we buy our nuts in bulk. It has butter in it. It has brown sugar, but I think I have some brown sugar left from when I made the Christmas cake. It has plain flour. It has 2 bananas, so I'll be able to use up 2 of those bananas. It also has 1 large egg, vanilla extract, and some salt. So I've got all of those things to make it. This egg that was laid today is pretty large. Now I've got some of this gluten-free flour that I purchased for my kids to do some Christmas baking, because I didn't have time to make up our own gluten-free flour mix. So I'm going to use this one for the blondies and the bananas. So approximately 200 grams. 1.5 teaspoons of vanilla extract. And I've got this wrapper to grease the pans. I love keeping these for this purpose. There it is. The mixture. All right, this can go in with the muffins, and I'll set a separate timer for this recipe. All right, I've just got the Thermomix cleaning in the background. So as you can see, I have my lentils out that I cooked up. I like to cook them until they are quite sort of mushy, and having them sort of mushy like this creates a good base for the burgers that I'm going to make. Makes them stick, or helps them stick together. So I'm pretty sure I have done this recipe before for you in another video, but I'm not going to go through the recipe too much because I just throw things in. I go by feel with these burgers, so I'll just be throwing things in, and yeah, one day I will write a recipe down and I will put it in the recipe book that I'm planning on writing this year. Adding some of these gluten-free breadcrumbs that I purchased because I've run out of my own homemade breadcrumbs. And I'm also using this tomato paste that I have in the pantry because I've run out of my cans of, or bottles rather, of tomato paste. I've just got the dried stuff left and I want this to be quick. I'm going to dice up these onions and cook these to put into the burgers. Okay, so you can probably hear that I am frying up the onions, so I fry them up before I add them into the mixture. And I've just got my beautiful basil here that I harvested this morning. I'm going to chop this up and pop it into the mix. All right, I've got all the herbs in here and I've added a little bit of store-purchased oregano as well. I just couldn't cope without having some more herbs because I've run out of a lot of the dried herbs that I dry from our garden. And as much as I'd like to just stick with our own homegrown, some years there's just not as much to dry as others. And here are the onions. This mixture here is a little bit drier than this one here. You can see how this one is sticking to the spoon a lot more and in a different way. So I'm just going to add the eggs in and then I will see how they look. Here are all the eggs coming from our chickens. Look at all the different colors we're getting. Getting a light brown, dark brown and different blue greeny eggs, which is just delightful. So I'm going to add 3 into each mixture and we'll see how we go. All right, 3 eggs has made this one a little bit too sticky, so I'm going to add some breadcrumbs in. 1 more minute, I reckon. Perfect. Just pop some breadcrumbs on the outside and it's ready to cook. Of course, I'm going to be freezing a whole heap of these, so I won't cook them to freeze them. I'll just chuck them straight in the freezer and they will be ready to cook once they're thawed just a tiny bit. So I have one more meal to make, and that is what we're going to be eating tonight. But I've just got to cut up some carrots. Here's my homegrown cauliflower. So this was a purple one. It turned green when I blanched it. I will put this aside to defrost a bit, but I'm just going to break it up and put it into the dish, and it will, as it cooks, or warms up rather, it will defrost. And I've got the chickpeas, and I'm going to use some Egyptian walking onions in the curry. I've got the curry paste, and I have got some coconut cream to put in as well. It's a pretty simple dish, and then I will cook some rice to go with it. I think I need to add in the rest of this. I generally have this in, I think, a larger container, and it does 2 meals, but I feel like there's not enough colour in this curry, and it's not going to have the flavour that I like. While that's cooking, I will be popping all the lentil burgers into containers and obviously still making the rest of these. I've got quite a lot here, so it's fantastic. I'll have some meals for those busy days where I just want to throw a salad together and cook up some lentil burgers, and that's it. I hope you've enjoyed following along today, and I will see you again tomorrow. The next morning, I made the waffles from the batter I mixed up the day before. I had fruit and smoothie, but my kids thoroughly enjoyed eating into these waffles after I'd left for work. I had leftovers for lunch while I was at work, and for dinner I made a salad to go with the lentil burgers I made the day before. The salad consisted of millet, chives, mint, toasted sunflower seeds, lightly fried kale, olive oil, currants, and feta cheese. On January 6th, we had another repeat of waffles, another opportunity to work through some other bananas that I had ripening fast, and the kids requested waffles, so I can't resist making them what they want to eat. My kids left for 2 nights at my parents' place, so I only had 2 to feed for the next couple of days. That night, I found a bag of corn cobs deep down in my deep freezer. I steamed them up and we ate them with leftovers in the fridge. There were only 2 lentil burgers left as my kids and husband had eaten some for lunch before my kids had left. I served them with some more of the salad I made the day before and some sauerkraut on top. I put some of our favourite homemade apple chutney on top of the lentil burgers and added the corn cobs. The next day I made smoothies as we'd worked through our last lot. I whizzed up some nuts, seeds and coconut flakes in the Thermomix bowl before adding the fruit. I'd collected these bananas and frozen fruit from the deep freezer. And I used the mint and spinach I picked the day before in the smoothie too. I also added some of this prebiotic powder to my cup before I drank it. I made a second smoothie that my kids would enjoy when they came back from my parents. And in their smoothie, I added dates, almonds, bananas, spinach from the freezer, and water. For lunch, I served myself leftovers. There was still a bit to be eaten from the fridge with my kids away, so we had most of our meals sorted. However, for dinner, I decided to make something I haven't cooked before. I had a small bag of some organic chicken thighs in the fridge that was too small to feed the 5 of us. So with some of the frozen spring onions, the rest of this bag of powdered garlic, some of these apricots, and some vegetable stock, I made an apricot chicken dish. I also added a little salt from this flavoured salt a friend of mine made for me. The meal was delicious. And then, my friends, the week went pear-shaped. On Friday the 9th, bushfires started heading our way. Thankfully, the wind changed and it went to the east, so we were no longer in danger. Many of our friends and community members are devastated by the effects of this fire. It is still burning, but we are safe, although a little shattered. I haven't been in the mindset to film, so I'll see you again for week 3 of the Pantry Challenge. Take care, my friends.